Welcome back to Studio 5. So you know how to react when someone shares the happy news that they are expecting a baby. But when a woman experiences a miscarriage, often it's hard to know what to say or how to help. Blogger Lindsay Redfern recently tackled that very topic on her blog, The Our House. She interviewed 3 women who had experienced the heartbreak of losing a baby and shared their thoughts and insights in a series of posts called Understanding and Supporting Pregnancy Loss. We invited Lindsay here today to talk about what she learned from these brave women that she interviewed, and it was a very insightful article. I learned a lot by reading about their experiences, and they were so courageous in sharing them with you. What did you hope to accomplish by writing that?
I wanted to bring awareness to a group of women, a community of women who were suffering from this situation, this trial, oftentimes in silence. And I really feel like the internet is a great way to connect with people who are going through similar experiences, and I needed to give a platform to that. I actually, one of the women I interviewed is my sister-in-law, Brooke, and she had lost a pregnancy just a couple months before, and she was getting some really weird comments from people. And out of context, they just sounded horrible.
And they hurt.
And they hurt. And I think people are good intentioned and they want to help. They think they're helping, but some of the things that people are saying are just painful.
I want to tackle some of these what not to say phrases.
Okay.
You included these in the interview with these women. A lot of times they were hearing things like it was for the best, or there was probably something wrong with the baby anyway. That right there, just hearing that makes me cringe. And people, like you said, well-intended in what they're saying, but what did the women tell you? Why was that so painful for them?
Well, what they're telling us is, really what that comment is saying is, you know, it's kind of your fault. You know, if you weren't as stressed out, if you weren't as, you know, suffering or whatever, you know, then maybe the baby would have been okay. So they're placing the blame on the mother, who, if you think about it with any other loss of any other child, you would never go up to a grieving mother and say, it was probably your fault. You know, it's probably better that your child didn't live anyway. And we need to recognize that these women who have lost a pregnancy are suffering and mourning this loss just as they would the loss of any other child, any other family member.
Another comment I found interesting these women shared with you that was hard for them to hear was when, again, a well-meaning friend or relative would say something to the effect of, oh, I've been there, or I know somebody who's been there, and they would almost rank the tragedy.
Right.
And I think in an attempt to connect, fair enough, in an attempt to connect, but why was that so hurtful for these women?
One of the women I interviewed, Laura, who was one of my college roommates, she actually said, comforting someone in their grief should not include any one-uppers. You know, you're not gonna, you don't want to say to somebody who is suffering and mourning and grieving, oh, you know what, my neighbor down the street had 5 miscarriages, so just be grateful that you're not there. But those things, people say those things because they don't know what to say.
Sure.
When really it's better to say, you know what, I don't know what to say, but I want to listen.
Just admit, you don't know. You're uncomfortable with the situation.
I don't know what to say, but I'm so sorry this happened to you.
You did focus too on things to do at the suggestion of these women, and one of the things they suggested that would be helpful in this heartbreaking situation is to remember and acknowledge that it happened. Right.
So when you're talking with your loved one about the experience, if they refer to the child by name, you should refer to the child by name. That's something that Laura brought up. She loved when her family members and friends refer to the baby that they lost by her name. Another thing is another woman that I interviewed, Kim, she's actually a jewelry owner of a jewelry shop that we own together with another friend, and she experienced a pregnancy loss also. And we created a line of jewelry where we can actually, you know, have a something tangible to remember. So if you don't know what to say to a friend, maybe send them a necklace that has, you know, the word courage on it, or I'm thinking of you, or the name of the baby if the baby had a name.
To acknowledge it happened and that you care.
And validate it, that it was real. Your loss is real. I hear you.
You talk about using the right terminology, and many of your suggestions, you know, danced around sensitivity. This dances around education, being educated in the terminology, so you feel confident in having those words armed and ready to go.
You know, that is something I learned firsthand because I am not a pregnancy loss survivor. I suffer from infertility, but I have not lost a pregnancy. And when I interviewed these women, I didn't know the right things to say, and I'm really involved in the infertility community. So I said, you know, if I'm saying the wrong thing, please let me know and please correct me. And I was using the word miscarriage. And something that Laura taught me was when you say miscarriage, you're referring to when the pregnancy ends before 20 weeks. And then after that, it's usually referred to as infant loss or pregnancy loss. That's
a lot of things. That's a common thing women might not know.
Right. I didn't know. And like I said, I'm involved in this community.
Sure.
So there's things for everybody to learn if we're willing to kind of put our ego aside and put our defensiveness aside.
You know, it's so interesting. I found it intriguing we were tackling this topic today. Recently, you know, with October coming up, there's this breast cancer awareness movement that always happens on Facebook, and they try to think of this clever way, you know, to let people know they're in support of breast cancer. And this particular year, you know, well-meaning women set out to post, and according to your birthday, I'm expecting and I'm craving this.
Right.
And I immediately saw women Facebooking about how hard that was for them to hear people that had experienced infertility, pregnancy loss, miscarriages, and I thought, gosh, I know women who have gone through this. I consider myself sensitive, but that's an added layer. There are things that you do and even say that can be hurtful and harmful.
And another reason why it's so important to talk about these things, and instead of saying to a friend who has posted why they're not going to participate in this silly game on Facebook, instead of attacking them for not supporting breast cancer or for being too sensitive, just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was offensive to the infertility community.
And just treating this as a family loss, because it is for these women.
Right. Absolutely, and it's something that we can offer comfort and we can offer love to people without being offensive by just being willing to say, I hear you, or when you're ready to talk, I'd love to chat about it.
I think it's great what you're doing, just bringing awareness and attention on a subject that can be hard to talk about and tough to talk about. Thank you for sharing your insight, and thanks to those women. You'll want to read their posts. We've connected you to Lindsay's blog, The Our House, on our website, studio5.ksl.com, so be sure to check it out after the show, and we'll be